You know, we're all drawn to those big, flashy stories of dangerous romance, right? I'm talking about films like 365 Days, where the obsession is front and center and the threats are crystal clear. But what if the real danger isn't in the obvious chase? What if it's in the quiet moments? Today, we're going to look at 5 films that have absolutely mastered a different kind of suspense. One that's less about what's happening on the outside and all about what's unraveling on the inside.
You got the fantasy. The power is obvious, the danger is slick and stylized, and there's a kind of certainty to it that's, well, it's seductive because it's simple. But then, look at the right side. That's the reality we're diving into. Unstable power, psychological danger, and this corrosive doubt that just eats away at everything. This is where the real drama lives.
So, before we can really dig into these complex psychological thrillers, we need a point of comparison, a baseline. And honestly, what better baseline is there than 365 Days? It was a huge cultural moment, and it gives us the perfect framework for understanding what these other films are pushing back against.
The thing about 365 Days that makes it such a perfect baseline is that there is absolutely zero ambiguity. The source material calls the obsession loud, and the danger stylized, for a reason. Everything is right there on the surface. You are never, ever left guessing who's in charge. It's a pure fantasy of total control, which, yeah, it's intense, but psychologically, it's just a straight line. There are no shadows.
All right, now let's flip the script. We're going to contrast that straightforward fantasy with our very first case study, the film I Want You. And this movie introduces a threat that's way more insidious than any mafioso or villain could ever be: the ghost of a past love.
And here's where the real darkness in this film comes from. It's this specific psychological trap called romantic memory. Now, this isn't just, missing an ex. This is when a past relationship becomes so baked into your identity that the fact that it's unresolved starts to literally poison your present happiness. It's basically nostalgia that's been weaponized by your own ego. And this is what makes the whole conflict so brilliant. See, the main character, Hajj, he isn't really choosing between two women. He's choosing between two versions of himself. You have Bobby, who represents that romanticized, reckless past. And then you have Jin, who represents the challenging, messy, evolving present. The real tension isn't some love triangle, it's the war going on inside his own head.
So if I Want You shows us the danger of looking to the past, our next 2 films bring that threat even closer to home. They explore how the most corrosive secrets can fester inside a relationship, totally hidden in plain sight.
I mean, this quote about deep water just nails it, doesn't it? Forget the shouting matches and the big dramatic showdowns. This film is all about that creepy, unsettling tension that just simmers right below the surface of a polite, civil life. It's a quiet war, fought with side glances over dinner.
Their marriage is basically a twisted game of chess. You've got Melinda, who uses infidelity to try and get a reaction, to provoke him. And then you have Vic, who counters with this chilling, unnerving patience that's all about dominating the situation. So their entire marriage becomes this duel disguised as civility. The tension isn't about attraction anymore, it's about control. And that power isn't romanticized at all, it's just corrosive.
And that leads us to an even more chilling question, one that's really at the heart of our next film. What if the danger isn't some external force? What if it's growing, quietly, inside the very apartment you share with the person you think you love?
This is the unsettling journey of 56 Days. It starts out as this intense whirlwind lockdown romance, but then the whole thing shatters and turns into a murder investigation. All that intimacy that felt so real is suddenly revealed to be built on a foundation of secrets. The source material uses this incredible term, emotional necrosis. It's this idea that the relationship didn't just break, it decayed from the inside out.
Okay, for our final pair of films, we're diving into a whole different kind of psychological damage. This is the kind that comes from deep-seated insecurity, from doubt, and from the incredible emotional risk you have to take to actually desire someone. The film Trust maps out this destructive cycle just perfectly. It all begins with one tiny seed of suspicion, but instead of protecting their loyalty, they decide to test it. And that's the tragedy, right? The very act of testing, which is fueled by insecurity, is what ends up causing the exact betrayal they were afraid of. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and once it happens, that relationship is changed forever.
And all of this really boils down to this one crucial idea: emotional risk. This is where the danger isn't a weapon or a criminal plot. The danger is vulnerability itself. It's the terrifying feeling of being completely exposed and that mutual surrender that real, true desire demands of us.
And that is the engine that drives the hating game. Unlike that loud, in-your-face obsession, the attraction here is held back. It's restrained. And that restraint creates this immense, almost unbearable pressure. The conflict isn't about one person controlling the other. It's a constant internal battle against your own fear of being seen. The real question is, who is going to be brave enough to admit their feelings first and risk everything?
All right, we've looked at 5 very different films, each with its own brand of mind games. But what's the common thread here? What's the pattern that connects all of them? Let's step back and put the pieces together.
When you line them all up, you see these fascinating psychological traps. In I Want You, romantic memory is a prison. In Deep Water, marriage becomes a Cold War. 56 Days shows us that intense passion can actually become a crime scene. In Trust, the suspicion itself is the poison. And in The Hating Game, the most explosive force of all is the desire you try to keep bottled up.
In this chart, this basically sums it all up. The fantasy gives you certainty. Power is declared, the danger is external, like rivals or criminals, and the tension is big and explosive. But the psychological thrillers we've been talking about, they play a totally different game. Power is always being contested, it's unstable. The real danger is internal. It's your own ego, your own insecurity. And the tension isn't some big bang, it's a slow, corrosive burn.
So, where does all this leave us? Well, it suggests that maybe we need a new lens, a new way to think about what makes a romance truly feel dangerous.
Because at the end of the day, the kind of romantic danger that really gets under your skin isn't the kidnapping or the grand dramatic gestures. It's the quiet stuff. It's how nostalgia can hold you prisoner. It's how insecurity can poison even the strongest bond. It's about the little stories we tell ourselves about love that aren't quite true.
And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all of this. A story about desire becomes truly, deeply unforgettable, not when it just looks dangerous on the surface, but when the emotional fallout feels permanent, when it feels psychologically irreversible. Now that is a much more terrifying and much more memorable kind of danger.